Hello and good evening, and welcome to episode 48 of the Grove podcast. My name is Tabs, and you'll have guessed Moz is otherwise engaged again. I must admit I need to question his commitment to the pod, a bit like some of the commitment of some of our players last night. But we will get to that. And today I am joined again, and thankfully thank you to Jamie for stepping into the breach. So Jamie, how are you, and how's your day been?
Good, injury free. So yeah, getting on all right.
That's good. That's pleased to hear. Pleased to hear you're injury free. Yeah, at least someone is, because at the moment we're toppling like dominoes, a bit like Calafiori's knee. Anyway, so look, today we're gonna review that exciting blockbuster Champions League game against Shakhtar. There's going to be so much to talk about. There's so many chances, so many goals, so many everything we're going to talk about. So that's going to be a great first half, and then we're going to look forward to our easy, confident Premier League game against Liverpool, where we're going to go cruising to a 5-0 win, no problem, on Sunday. And now we're going to get back to reality. So anyway, Jamie, so now that you've had a chance to watch the game again, you're masochist. What's your highlight and low light from the game? And he's watched, just to let people know, Jamie has got it on rerun. I think he's already watched it once. He watched it last night. Yeah, something's wrong here, Jamie. So yeah, really, I think you're trying to find your highlight from the game. That's what you've been searching for. So yeah, tell me, what's your highlight and low light from the game?
I mean, the highlight was clearly final whistle. It's about as simple as that, and not from a relief perspective or anything. Well, relief that it was over and I didn't have to continue watching it. Low light. I mean, watching it a second time definitely is probably a bit of a low light in my life at the moment. But I think probably that wound me up the most actually was that free header that was at the very end of the game in the 91st minute that Shakhtar got. That really sort of bothered me actually, more so on rewatch. It didn't bother me so much the first time round, but it's where they're I think it's their fullback gets a really nice ball across, beats his man, gets the byline, nice ball, and whoever it is, one of the many Brazilians that turns up at Shakhtar, manages to scuff his header. But when you look back at it, it was a really, really good opportunity in the 91st minute that I don't expect us to give to him at all. So that was my low light, and I realise I've just spent about 5 times as much time on the low light than the highlight, and that didn't dedicate for a win, but it is what it is.
It's understandable after last night. So anyway, good for you. And look, in terms of my, I'll start with my low light. I think it was the Calafiori injury. Had hints of timber against Forest last season. Goes down, gets back up, comes back on, and then goes down again. Yeah, that was a low light, and it's sort of more low light again. Can we catch a break with our fullbacks, with our defenders? It didn't look good on slow mo, but he seemed to walk off, and he wasn't like, oh my god, head in tears and covering his eyes. So it's hard to assess. I said maybe he's got ligaments made of cheesy string, and he'll be fine. I think he's got that. When he was a youth footballer, he had a really severe. He's lucky to be playing at this level, so he had a really severe injury. So I think there's always going to be caution. So I'm 50-50 on it. It could be just. It depends how it swells up today. It could be the size of a balloon, and he's buggered, and he's not playing at the weekend, or maybe it's just one of those ones that looks worse in slow motion, or is it? So let's see. Arteta said it didn't. It wasn't. It was a worry, but I think the context was that they don't know what's wrong is the worry, not the injury is the worry. So I think we'll find out soon enough. And actually, I have a question on this later on around the injuries and our defenders and fullbacks particularly that we'll pose. And then my highlight was Kevin. just the substitution that comes on, and Kevin. Brilliant. Just a single name. His name's Kevin. It's not even a Brazilian name or the rest of it. So I think that made me chuckle, and I was hoping that the next substitution was going to be Perry, but unfortunately it wasn't. So it was just.
My second favourite name at Shakhtar after I used to love Alan Patrick, Many years ago, when Neymar was at Santos on FIFA, I used to play as Santos on the regular just for him and his skills. And Alan Patrick played in midfield for him.
Oh
I
my
couldn't
word,
wait for him to arrive in Europe because there was just something about a Brazilian midfielder called Alan Patrick that sort of really got me. So, yeah,
unbelievable.
County
I
Cork's
mean,
Santos is finest. You don't really know.
but I'd love to know the origins of that. Which Kevin it was that did it? It seems a bit too late for Kevin Keegan, so I'm trying to really, really struggle with that one. Anyway, well done, Kevin. You made my evening. Um, so look, let's start off looking at the lineup. So pretty much we had a couple of changes from the Bournemouth game. So out went Sterling and Marino, and in came Jesus and Nelly. And then also we sort of reverted back to the formation that we've been playing with, whilst we've been through this difficult period, injury suspension period, where Havertz and Trossard were sort of dovetailing between deep playmaker and centre forward. So it's sort of a decent enough team. So Jamie, what did you make of the 11? What did you? Yeah, were you pleased with it? Was it as expected? Was it enough? Yeah, give me your thoughts on the
It's what
starting 11.
it's what you can put out, isn't it, at this stage? And we didn't expect to see um, Saka risked for it. I think I said last week I'd have rather seen him risked against Bournemouth, and especially in retrospect, than I would against Shakhtar. And it was an 11 that should go out and win that game of football, which they did, but a little more convincingly would have been nice. But yeah, it's a fine 11, isn't it? There's not much else to say about it. I don't think there were any huge dilemmas for the manager given who was available to him. The only question is whether he'd have liked to take a big risk on somebody and chuck in, an MLS or something like that, or an Wanyeri when you wouldn't expect him to for this game, I don't think. But it's obviously the one option that you might have had.
Well, yeah, when Aries the straight. I mean, I was pleased that Jesus got a start, and I was really pleased he was playing out wide than up front. I think that's where his position is now. I think he's a wide player, not a centre forward. His finishing last night showed that. Yeah, so I was pleased to see him get a start. But on the Waneri one, yeah, it's a tough one because we know we're lacking creativity and we're missing something. And if you're not going to start him okay, he's going to start next week against Preston. If you're not going to start him in this game as a sort of big enough game, but Shakhtar aren't the opposition, I would suggest that any Premier League game is going to be harder and more intense than last night. So you're not really going to potentially start him there. So if you don't start him last night, when would you? I know Arteta's conservative. He's managing his minutes. He's a bit more conservative. If you look at the team, no surprising. Who would you take out to put in there? In hindsight, maybe Trossard, maybe Havertz. Don't know. Yeah, it's a tough one. I'm still 50-50. I'm disappointed he didn't get on at all, but that's game state more than anything else because MLS came on having two 17-year-olds, Champions Leagues, 1-0 up. We're just shutting up shop just. So yeah, I would have been nice to see him. I was a bit surprised Sterling didn't start because he only got the 30 minutes, but then given the performance he put in, I'm pleased he didn't start. So can't really argue with the team. I just wanted to. I don't know if you noticed, but watching at the stadium, sort of from my sort of high perch, I just wanted to sort of call out a couple of players. So Saliba, I know he had a tough one over the international break and got a lot of criticism in the French press, and then he got the red card. So I don't know, and he's still young. He was 22, 23, something like that. So he's still young, still developing as a centre-back. Centre-backs don't become the finished article till 25, 26, 27 or beyond. I could sense he just didn't seem. There seemed to be a bit of something. When you know something's not right, you can't put it. I don't know. Did that come across on TV at all? Was that there? Because it just seemed like he's just not his full confident self at the moment, and maybe he's just going through a difficult patch. Nothing egregious or totally ridiculous, but yeah, something just doesn't feel right. I don't know if that comes across on TV.
It didn't for me, but I think there's probably two elements to that. I mean, firstly, there is something you get in the stadium that you don't normally get at home, but particularly for this kind of game because it was the least absorbing game possible. So if you're watching it on a TV, I mean, I'll tell you what, it was that. boring a game that, like, I mean, I live right by, by the Emirates, and normally can hear whenever a goal goes in, kick off, full time, and a few moments in between. Nothing out my window was coming through last night. So yeah, it's one of those. It was probably that um, difficult to notice those kind of finer moments because I just wasn't paying quite as much attention as I would have been had I been at the game. So it's interesting that you say that. I mean, I think with Saliba, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a bit of a confidence not there. Things have been. It reminds me a little bit of I used to watch a lot of Virgil van Dijk when he was at Celtic early on in his career, and everything. The one criticism that a lot of Celtic fans had with him was that he used to be so good, so very, very good, and so heads and shoulders above everyone, not only in the Scottish League that you'd expect, but even when they played in Europe as well. That things were almost a little bit too easy for him. And that when things did go awry, he could be a little bit shook up. And I wonder if it's a little bit like that. Saliba's career today with Saint Etienne, with Marseille, and with ourselves has been essentially him looking like the trajectory's been phenomenal, and he's just looked like everything is taken in his stride, and it's so easy, and he looks so mature. And so a bit of a bad, probably the worst 2 weeks of his career, to be completely frank. Maybe that does get in his head a little bit. And maybe he has to go through this, and maybe like a Van Dijk who did have a spell or two like that at Celtic, maybe he recovers out of it and matures further and becomes an even better player for it. But, there's no
No,
alarm bells for me at the moment, but just, I wouldn't be surprised if he's playing within his head a little bit.
yeah, no. It's not alarm bells, and I think it's part of the development. I think you need to go through this. So again, no concerns, but it's just interesting that for me, when I'm watching that, it's when something's just off and not his usual self. So yeah, but I'm sure he'll get through it. He'll learn from it. He'll come out better because I think in the past, whenever something's not been right with him, like the own goal against Leicester last year, or he's done other stuff, he comes out, even better for it. The other couple of things in terms of the players, I mean, there were two standout players last night, very easily, Martinelli and Partey. Martinelli was just a level above everyone, just his energy, his attitude, and great. And Partey, particularly in the first half in his midfield, he was fantastic, and he's continuing his excellent form. The interesting thing with Partey, there's still that if only he had just a bit of an extra yard of pace or something about him, then he'd be like, wow, okay, well, I'd even start him over Rice, sort of thing, in anything. You're just concerned a bit about his backwards ability, but other than that, he was really, really good last night. And then I thought Trossard had another one of those games where you go, oh yeah, that's why you start him as sub.
Yeah, it really was, wasn't it? I also, there were a couple of times as well where I really wanted Trossard's dovetailing with Havertz is quite nice at times, and then quite a lot last night I was feeling like that really ought to be Kai in that position there, which was any time he got on the end of a ball. But yeah, frustrating.
Frustrating. So, but saying that, okay, it's a win. It's 3 points, which is the primary objective. Clean sheet, job done. We'll take it. And so actually, it was weird. Even though we won, it did feel. I think the wider context makes Arsenal fans be a bit more dour about all things, but we can talk about context in a minute. But as I said, we created enough chances to win this game comfortably, but unfortunately we were lackluster, unconvincing in parts. But had we taken the chances in the first half, 2-3-0, we go home, we forget about it. So it is a bit of that double-edged sword. As look, we now have 7 points. We're unbeaten in the Champions League group stages, not conceded. We've got a +3 goal difference. Someone's saying that we've guaranteed a knockout spot already, so we're guaranteed already top 8, 16, 24. So I looked at it. I got brain ache, and then I forgot, and then all right, I won't fact check it. But there are some concerns. We were inconsistent. We were good in parts, but inconsistent in others. We're a bit ropey, a bit dull, a bit poor. I think, like you alluded to. I mean, what was your overall reaction to the game? Could you balance the job done versus job done but unconvincingly?
I mean, it was perfunctory, right? Which is fine. I think after the weekend and that weekend having come after a break and everything, you kind of wanted the Arsenal to go and blow the bloody doors off, and we didn't. But there is something to be said for being able to go into Champions League games and get perfunctory wins without looking like you're busting a gut the week before you go and play Liverpool. There is something to be said for that. The context point is that main one, and that's the word that sprung out to me after the rewatch, in particular, kind of collecting my thoughts, was just the context is everything. I think as fans, our context is, as I've said, we want them to blow the bloody doors off because we've just had a bad weekend. I think for the team, that context is a lot more complicated. I think you look at the players that have been missing. There was a really good article in the Athletic the other day. It was talking about Saka and Odegaard being missing and the impact it's had on Arsenal, and that specifically called out that big teams do actually rely on a couple of players. It is not a terrible thing that we are so reliant on two of the top 20 players in the world. Like, I think probably for me, both of those players are in there. I think if you look at that team, it's also the leadership as well. Both of those are big leaders within the team. It's our skipper, and then it's our kind of star boy or whatever you want to call it, but the guy that sets a lot of standards at the club, and probably the most experienced man in an Arsenal shirt a lot of the time these days in terms of actually playing for the Arsenal. So having those two be missing the amount they have been, and for this game, and to come out of it with a win, as perfunctory and as boring as it might have been, I don't think is a terrible thing from their perspective. I just think as fans, I can completely understand why we're a bit dissatisfied, and feel like we could have done something better with our Tuesday night.
Yeah, I think everything's got Liverpool in mind. I think that's what it is. I said if we can't play like this against if we're going to play like this against Shakhtar, oh my God, what are we going to do against Liverpool? And we'll talk about Liverpool later. For me, I want to put this in context. There's a couple of things. Is like, you're right. So maybe this is the best team Arteta can put out at the moment, and it's a bit patchworky. But we're dealing with injuries and suspensions, and been doing that. So we've not been able to get into any rhythm, any consistency.
Yeah.
So there's only so much he can do. Now, he is by nature very pragmatic, conservative. So maybe that's coming out there. But also when we're missing these players, we're easier to play against. So therefore, you have to give credit to Shakhtar. They weren't great, but they played well, and especially the last 15 minutes, they gave us a little bit of trouble. So, but we have sort of allowed them to look good. But there's the other thing. Without our best players, then other teams can thrive more, like Bournemouth did at the weekend. It needed us to go down to 10 men with missing players for them to do it. But if you also look at the team that we finished with, Miles Lewis-Skelly, Partey was at right back. Sterling was playing, and Sterling was Sterling. But and so you look at what we finished with. Calafiori went off injured. Ben White is still coming back to fitness. So even then, and I know Arteta said he took him off because he wanted to not go down to 10 men again and in danger. And actually, there was a moment at the end when Martinelli went to block the goalkeeper taking a quick goal kick, and he put his arm around, and I was like, oh, please, because Martinelli was already booked for something stupid in the first half, and I was like, oh, come on, please. If the goalkeeper made more of it, luckily the goalkeeper wanted to get on with it, so he could have made more of it. So I was like, but so if you look at the team that we finished with, and particularly with Partey at right back, as I said, he was really good in midfield in the first half. But there's two things with him going at right back. One, you lose his presence in the midfield, so we lose that dominance in there. But two, at right back, there is no overlapping. He's not going to cross. So basically, any attacking threat down the right-hand side is either Jesus on his own, and therefore easy to mark, or the ball just gets recycled into the middle and back out to the left, and then you double up on the left. So again, that makes it. So then we become easier to defend against from an attacking position if Partey plays at right back. Now, again, that's not against him doing the right back role. He just doesn't offer the attacking threat. And we saw Ben White was actually doing overlapping yesterday compared to what he was doing against Bournemouth and what he's done recently. So you look at how we played, how we finished. then well, it's not surprising that we just got away with a 1-0 dour win, and maybe you. And here's a question for you: not just with our injuries and suspensions and pragmatism, but does the number of games that we have to deal with, or players have to deal with internationally, domestically, etc., European games, does it mean that teams look to manage these sort of games more and be more pragmatic and try and win at 70%, try and win expending less energy? Do you think these number of games, it gets in the head, is like, I'm just going to do enough to win, and therefore we as fans, we don't see that exciting gung-ho football that we like to see? Do you think there's
Well,
an
this
element there of that?
this is precisely what several players have put their hands up and talked about, and the PFA have talked about, and Fifth Pro have talked about, is the quality of the product decreases when you put these demands on players, because, and it's in lots of different ways. I mean, I'm quite passionate on the subject. There's way too much bloody football being played. There's way too much being played by the Arsenal right now. Um, it results in lots more soft tissue injuries. In, you know, ultimately just the risk as well of some of the completely, random stuff happening that occurs in games as well, that causes injuries. It causes the players to be more fatigued, and as a result, I think you're absolutely right. Managers are having to manage games in a more conservative fashion, and a game like today, you're never going to go out and tell your players to give it 70%, but I think you know that a game's all about, when you go into a match, at least anyway, for a professional footballer, there's a load of context around it that can massively affect their performance. And if they're not being told this is the be all and end all, and we're looking to, we need to go and blow this game away, and the messaging is slightly more conservative, then that affects the mindset they go into that game with, and it does mean that you do step off the gas very slightly, I think.
Mm.
And it does also mean that I don't see this as some great precursor to what's going to happen next weekend, because all the players know what that game is. They shouldn't even need telling what they need to do in that game. But I think you're absolutely right that it is what's going to happen with a lot of clubs playing this amount of football and a lot of players playing this amount of football. And even the manager's instructions and the way they set up and how conservative they are, it's going to be in the heads of some of the players too.
No,
It's
no, yeah, no, I agree. Also, the crowd was quite flat. It was one of those chatting with your neighbour type crowds. You could hear them murmuring, and maybe the crowd. It was one of those games where you need the team to get the crowd up rather than the other way around. I think on Sunday, the crowd will get the team up, no problem. So, you sometimes you need the team to get the crowd up. Sometimes you need the crowd to get the team up, and I think there's an element of that in there as well. And you're right. We just, again, the game went according to all the statistics, all pre-game statistics, and all the rest of it. But we scored. Calafiori scored that chance early, etc., etc. 2-0 up, job done. I mean, it was expected goals 1.8 to 7. We had 13 shots to their 9. We had 3 big chances, and that's another thing. And I think we said this at the beginning of this year, and this was part of the problem last year. We're still a team that creates lots of big chances, creates lots of turnovers, but we are not converting those to enough goals. And even though we scored a ton of goals last season, it still was a standout thing that we create so many big chances, just don't take it. And last night was the same. But we've only scored 6 goals in our last 7 Champions League games, so that was on brand. We scored 1 goal. We've conceded 0 in the last 6 of 7 Champions League games at the Emirates. So again, on brand, 1-0. And Shakhtar are winless in 7 games in England in the Champions League. So everything was on brand last night. So, if I'd have looked at this beforehand, my prediction, instead of being 5-0, it would have been, it's going to be 1-0, isn't it? Because of where we are. It had 1-0 written all over it. But I just think we thought I think they got easily beaten by Atalanta. They're not great. We're going to go away and steamroller them. But that was the heart rather than the head. So yeah.
I mean, George Graham's keys to international success, right? So you never know.
Yeah, 1-0 to the Arsenal as well. The announcer at the stadium was very much doing a lot of reliance on and it's 1-0 to the Arsenal. Like, okay, you're not going to get the crowd up, don't you worry. Um, so is it, I think, as you said, the game was sort of in 2 or 3 parts, and look, even Arteta alluded to it. There were two. He said there were 2 very different halves. The first we were dominant. We created 4 big chances that obviously we should have converted and put the game to bed. The second half was very different. We looked tired, and granted, we had to play 60, 70 minutes with only 10 men at the weekend, and these were similar players who've had to play with 2 halves with only 10 men, and we lacked sharpness with and without the ball to regain the ball in the right areas. So in terms of the first half, I was actually quite excited. We had a really dynamic, very fast first 15 minutes. So yeah, I mean, what were your thoughts? Seeing how we got out of the starting blocks. Yeah. How did you think that first half went? And what? Yeah, just take us through that.
Really well. First half hour, I found genuinely quite enjoyable. I thought there was some nice football being played, and yeah, I thought we got out the blocks well, and it had the feel of it. I think it had the feel at that point of, we could end up blowing these guys away by accident almost. It wasn't that I don't think we necessarily looked absolutely fantastic, but we got out the blocks well. We played decent football, and they didn't look like they were good enough to be able to match us. And that was, that was great. But it is, as you say, after the goal, it just starts to seize up a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And gets a little bit stiff almost as a match, to be completely frank, for a while. But yeah, I thought it was all right. I didn't think that during that period, we created a few half chances. I did all right, but there wasn't a moment that I look back on, apart from the Calafiori blazing over the top, where I think we really should have scored. Trossard, I think, sliced one. Declan Rice had an effort that got. Was it touched around the post, or was it just?
It was just a scuff shot.
Right, didn't he? So he kind of scuffed one. Martinelli got a bit lucky with his goal, but at the same time, that's what Martinelli does when he's at his best. Is he picks up the ball in that position, he threatens a defender, comes inside, and he gets the shot off at the end of the day, and he gets rewarded for having a go. So a bit lucky, but I felt like if we'd have not got that goal, we were in a position where it felt like the momentum was we were going to get a goal. And I can't help but feel like the momentum shift, where it's not that it swung to Shakhtar, but rather it just swung away from us, being on the front foot, was more to do with us scoring that goal and kind of feeling a little bit job done about it, than actually really anything else in the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, he definitely deserved that bit of luck. I think the team deserved it. If you don't buy a ticket, you're never going to win the lottery. So I was pleased to see it. It was a decent enough shot. It just went off the arse of the goalkeeper, and in it goes. But and then after that, I think I couldn't, until I saw it today. There was one where Havertz. I said, "How on earth did Havertz not score that?" And it was an amazing clearance off Havertz's forehead, because it was just going to nod it into an empty net. And then we come to Jesus, and I said, Jesus in the first half, he looked lively, and he looked dangerous. It was a very typical Jesus performance. You just weren't sure what you were going to get, but you could just see he was a threat, and they were doubling up on him, and Ben White was overlapping, but he wouldn't use him. He'd come inside, so he was trying to force the issue a bit. But then when he had that chance, it was very similar in a way, I think, to his chance against Forest away last year. Forest away, he tucks it into the corner. This one, he hits it too close to the keeper's legs, and we're going to see that later on. And he doesn't score. So again, you can see the efforts there, and he's trying. It's just needs that one thing, that bit of composure to go in, a bit like Martinelli was experiencing. Not that it will right all the rights, but it will get himself a bit out of his own head. But yeah, then I think in the second half, so we took off Ben White. Arteta said this was my decision to take him out. He had a yellow card, and we have played enough with 10 men in recent periods. And I think that just nullified and made it easier to play against, nullified some of our attack. And overall, and I think we're 1-0, so we think, I think we were trying stuff, but we weren't playing with due care and attention. There was low tempo. What I liked about the Martinelli goal was Calafiori picked up the ball halfway through the own half, drove forward, passed it to Rice. He drove forward, so there was a bit of oomph behind it. But it was one of the few times, and yeah, we're sloppy, lacked creativity, just missing. Yeah, it was very dull until there was two moments in the from the 70th minute. And then there was the Calafiori injury, fell down awkwardly. It looks like it potentially is an MCL injury, but let's see. But could be anywhere between okay for the weekend, 2 to 3 weeks, to 6 to 10 weeks. We're waiting to see. But in that, so we got Tomiyasu injured, Zinchenko injured, Timber injured, Ben White was injured for a period, Calafiori injured. It's maybe a loaded question, but is what Arteta's asking our fullbacks to do? I'm not sure. Correlation and causation aren't the same thing, but there's a lot of damn coincidences here. So it's either that, right, or the Emirates and London colonies built on ancient burial grounds. So tell me, is it just bad luck? Is it something that Arteta's asking our fullbacks to do? Don't know, that we're getting all these injuries.
I think it's bad luck. Personally, I'm not seeing what the causation necessarily is. That's that much different to other areas of the pitch. To be completely frank, most of our players, or certainly outside of the centre halves, most of our players are accustomed to travelling pretty great distances. Declan Rice isn't all of a sudden getting injured with a lot of distance travelled. Odegaard admittedly just has got one, but until then he'd been pretty injury free for us for a very long time with huge distance travelled normally. And Gabby Martinelli, in fairness as well, hasn't really been injured since he had that pretty nasty one a couple of years back. But I don't know. I think I can see what you're getting at. I just don't necessarily think that it's something that I would agree with when you look at the fact there's a bunch of different injuries that are occurring there. Maybe the one thing that I would have said a couple of years back, very much so, or a year back even, was when we were playing pretty consistently with the same back four week in, week out, that it's the amount of games that we're playing, and particularly with Ben White at that point. But actually, this season, I think we've set up in a way where it looks like we're going to be a little bit more rotational with it. So, yeah, I don't know.
I'm not
greater insight. I can't say, but it is a concern, and it has been a problem. And the fact that we end the game with Lewis Skelly at left back and Thomas Partey at right back is kind of, as much as anything, as good an indicator that you're going to get a relatively disjointed Arsenal display, because we've seen that a million times.
And again, I think this is part of the reason why we were so devoid of creativity, is that I think part of his plan, Arteta's plan for this year, was to use the fullbacks as real attacking threats, either both inverting. You saw, in previous games, Calafiori and Timber were on the inside, and Rice and Partey on the outside. They were going to be, especially without Saka, without Odegaard, we're using them more. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Martinelli's come to form with Calafiori being there, so we are using them. So I know they're asked to. They're not just up and down or defending. There's different requirements. So maybe it's not the load, but I don't know. There's different requirements. So maybe they're putting themselves into situations where they may get injured. I don't know, but you're right. It's just out there. It was just. I think it's bad luck. I think it's just a run of things. Yeah, I don't think there's anything particular that they're doing that wouldn't happen elsewhere. It's just, people laughed at us. What, another fullback? Well, thank God we got another fullback.
Maybe it's the demands on the modern fullback in general, And
yes.
Andy Robertson's had a lot of injuries over the last few years now. KT has been, obviously as a Scotland supporter, watching the two of them. In fact, then we had a squad few weeks back, well, there's no KT, there's no Andy Robertson, there's no Hickey, and there was another lad as well. We have 4 fullbacks that weren't available, who happen to be 4 of probably our top 5 footballers that
Yeah.
we've produced, because we produce one of them position.
Yeah, so
Maybe
you're right.
actually that is a
Maybe it
part.
is the modern fullback and what they're being asked. It's adapting their
Maybe
body.
maybe it is. The distance covered is huge.
Yeah,
They are shutting him, but then so did Nigel Winterburn.
yeah.
He was up
But
and down
I
that
would suggest
final,
there's
was
more
never injured.
more lateral movement. So I know again maybe technical. There's the difference between just up and down. But they're asked to maybe again it's a bit more lateral, left to right, and a bit more tricky rather than it's not just basic. Winterman great, but it was a basic left back. Up down, kick player, kick ball.
You're also not
You know,
seeing, the
yeah,
guys over at City go down, particularly. Walker's been doing
yeah,
that a lot for years.
yeah,
Gvardiol is doing that for
yeah.
City.
Uh,
I don't know. I get your point. I think I think we've been unfortunate. I think
yeah,
there is obviously, Timber's come off the back of not having played football for a year, so little knocks
yeah,
in there are going to be a thing. They just are. It's
yeah,
part of returning. Calafiori, that just looked like a horrible freak. That looked like it was position of the knee, right?
yeah.
And hopefully he's just tweaked it. Having done a lot to my knees in the past,
Mm,
you can't tell anything off what you actually see on the screen there at that stage. But as you say, he didn't look like he was, you know, in absolute agony,
mm,
but clearly not enough to go on.
mm,
And then if I look at Tommy, I'll be honest, Tommy's got the feel at the moment of a guy that just is on the KT wagon, and it's just not going to
mm.
get better. And for whatever reason, there's something quite bad there. And he probably needs to never be rushed back into a team, and that's going to require him, a severe amount of
Patient.
rehabilitation and a lot of patience. And whether he's going to get that time at the Arsenal is another question for me at this stage.
No,
Great shame, 'cause I love him,
indeed.
but he's turning into a bit of a glass man, isn't he? I don't even
Yeah.
know how Zinni got injured. I can't recall. Don't know. What was it? Did he drop a ketchup bottle on his foot or something?
Yeah,
I
I don't know. I
can't
think it's
remember him doing anything on the pitch for us. So I don't.
no. I think maybe just old injuries, just reassert. He's just not able. I think they're at 70%. They're struggling to finish off the last 30% in a lot of cases. And then we can't. Then Arsenal get a lucky break, sort of for once, and we get a chance to close out the game and put the game to bed and not worry about it with the penalty, which. I mean, for me, that's not a penalty.
I think it's
I
very
would.
debatable.
Huh?
I think it's very debatable, but I think on rewatch I was a little bit more convinced. I mean, the arm clearly stops it. I think
Yeah,
the thing that would have convinced you, if there's a player behind there, if Havertz is on the end of that,
yeah.
you're saying that's a pen, aren't you? 100%. It's
My,
travelled the distance. The arm is stiff, and the arm is. And the key thing is, and this is what they said on TV that kind of convinced me as much as anything. That was, I can't remember the referee, Plattenberg, I think it
mm,
was the fact that he made his body bigger by that position his arm takes,
okay.
and I think that really swings me. And the distance the ball had travelled, he's got all the time in the world to remove that arm, and he's made his body bigger. Were we extraordinarily lucky to get it? I think so, from the perspective that there's no danger once it's got past Trossard and that guy. But I kind of think, actually, if by letter of the law,
Yeah.
it's a good ball in, and he's made the ball travels without it hitting his arm. There's no other limb there that's going to
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah, no, okay. That you're sort of changing your mind. I had to watch it because in the ground we knew we did what I had no idea, and
Yeah,
there might be a penalty. Oh, okay, interesting. None of the players really claimed for it, and there was nothing there. We just expected a corner. For me, it was the only reason why I just thought it was momentum. So yes, his arm was there, but just purely because his body movement took it there, and he didn't have enough time to. Oh, I've got to take it out of the way. So I think for me, when I looked at it, it just felt like the momentum took his arm to the, and it was then just very unlucky that the ball hit his arm as the end of the momentum of his arm moving forward because it was twisting his body and all the rest of it. That he didn't have the body control to remove it before there. So for me, I just felt it was a bit unlucky because of
yeah,
momentum of his body rather than him trying to make himself bigger. It's just that man has arms move when body moves. sometimes you have control, sometimes you don't. So, put like this: if that was, I'd be quite disappointed if we gave away a penalty for that. So I would have been happy
100%.
for that not to be a penalty.
I don't like it being in the rule to an extent, but the problem is that if you do have a Havertz on the other side of that player,
Yeah.
it was a bloody good ball, and it was one of a couple of was that Marino that put that ball in, or
It
was it
was no Trossard. Trossard was the one that.
Trossard, that one, wasn't
Yeah.
it? No, Trossard was on the end of it. He was trying to connect with it.
Oh yeah. Sorry, Marino. Yeah,
It was
yeah.
Marino. I
Trossard was
think
on
it
the
was
stuff across it. Yeah,
one of the
yeah,
couple of really good crosses that he put in. He put in one
yeah.
that Trossard headed wide earlier on in the half.
Mm.
But yeah, it was a really nice ball played across. The threat is all in behind the two of those.
Yeah.
It's not really coming from Trossard. And if somebody is on the end of that, then
Mm.
that's all of a sudden a fantastic ball that's been stopped by somebody's arm,
Mm.
which it shouldn't. And
Okay.
the position then is,
Mm.
realistically in football, the arm shouldn't exist for outfield players whatsoever. And if you take away that arm, if you Photoshop that arm out, there's a Havertz on the other side of
Yeah.
it. You'd be
Yeah.
living with the fact that an arm had stopped him from being able to put the ball in the back of the net. However, I must admit, in situations like this, it feels like an absolute joke because it is a bit ridiculous. It is innocuous, and it was highlighted more so by the fact that it was, as you say, totally innocuous. Nobody expects it. You think you
Yeah.
just get a corner, and then all of a sudden VAR are calling it back, and you're going, "What was that even for?" So I
Yeah.
get it. It is a really strange one, but I do appreciate why it was given, and it's probably the right call technically. I think.
Okay. Anyway, it's a moot point. We missed it. so,
What's
so
something to
we,
talk about in this game that was actually
there,
about the
there
game?
you
You know
go.
what I mean? Like other than just context that we've talked about for the vast majority of it, and wider implications of bloody everything.
We talked about a penalty for 10 minutes that we missed, and that summed up the game, as you said. As you
Oh
said,
god, yeah.
it wasn't a great penalty. To be honest, half a foot to the left as you're looking at the goal, it's in, and everyone thinks, oh, it's a penalty. He watched the goalkeeper dive. But why didn't Havertz take it? Now this is wise after the event. Again, we're half a foot, even half an inch away from it. Yeah, but I must admit, I wasn't 100% confident. There was just something there. Why? I can't understand why Havertz wasn't taking it. Every time I've seen Havertz take a penalty, he's been good. I was a bit surprised that Havertz didn't take it. Were you expecting Havertz to take it?
I don't know. I don't know who. When Saka's not on the pitch, I
Yeah.
don't really know who's going to take it. To be
Well,
completely,
Odegaard. Oh, he wasn't there.
Odegaard, yeah, isn't there either. And it would have. I'd have given you two names as literally the two of them that I'd want to take
Yeah.
the penalty. I wouldn't have a problem with Trossard taking he's taken
No.
penalties for us before and he scored them. So who with that I just think it's a crap pen.
Yeah.
At the end of a pretty
Crap game.
nonplussed kind of game for Leo Trossard.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at him for the pen particularly. I'm a little bit more mad at him heading wide of the goal on, I think it was about 46, 47 minutes when Marino put in the first of those really lovely balls that he did a couple of times. And I will say, as my bright spot for that period, for that kind of 45 to 65, 70 period, I thought Marino was one of them. I actually thought what I liked about him was he did a lot of picking up the position that Xhaka used to, where actually he ends up kind of stood out on the left wing, allowing Martinelli to go inside, but offering the overlap there that he's not necessarily getting out of the fullback, who's inverted, and then. Actually, a couple of times that he did get the ball, let's say, really handy, really lovely guided crosses going across the area. Actually, so that was a little bit. Just I thought I would mention that I quite enjoyed about him in a game that he didn't necessarily get that involved in, but those particular things that he did and the fact he kept being in that overlap position was something that I found quite interesting.
No, good. I'm glad because I was wondering what is Marino for at the moment, because when you're there, he doesn't stand out. It's injury. All the other players you can tell. And where's Marino? Oh, there you have to. Every other player you look. Oh yeah, you recognise everyone. I don't recognise him yet on the pitch, and he's not. I think he's going to be one of these under the radar players that's just sort of always there or thereabouts, but doesn't. Unless he scores a header like he did against Germany for Spain in the Euros, he's just going to be a very under the radar, subtle player. Even when he wins his duels, I don't think they're like massive collisions and in there with a load of force. He's just there. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was struggling to see his purpose. So Trossard joins the likes of Arshavin, Alexis, Kanu, Ozil, and Henry, all missing pens for Arsenal in the Champions League. So he's in with exalted company there. So
I
yeah,
thought
decent.
initially you were going to be just talking about height then for a minute when you went from him to Arshavin and Alexis, and then you went to Kanu, and I thought, well, that's definitely not the
Yeah,
common denominator after all.
no. So and then after that, I think this is the third part of the game where Shakhtar sense, well, this is our moment. We've got out of jail here. Game should be over. And they started to press a bit more, and they started to be more on the front foot, and we then went backwards, and crowd got a bit antsy. It's only 1-0, anything can happen. 6 minutes at added time, and then there was that long range shot. I mean, it was a good save. It's one I expect him to save, but he saw it late because it hit him quite high up on the arm rather than on his hand. So you could tell he was diving into an area without being 100% certain where it was, or he dived late. So yeah. So anyway, but saved it, and then he did really well to claim the corner there afterwards. Lay on the floor for a few minutes, and the job done. So yeah, I think put that one to bed. Forget about it. 3 points. We don't know how the Champions League is going to pan out, but yeah, we're in a decent enough position. So let's just see. So oh boy, right, Liverpool at the weekend. Can we continue talking about Shakhtar? No, Liverpool at the weekend. Yeah, what are you looking forward to? Not looking forward to. You know the drill.
I'm looking forward to the amazing announcement that Martin Odegaard hasn't even been injured this whole time, and out he struts looking $1 million. Yeah, I think. I mean, I really would like to see Saka there. That's the bit that I would probably be looking forward to on a more realistic note. As strong a team as we can put out, obviously. I mean, what I'm not looking forward to is bloody Liverpool, whilst we've got a bunch of injuries and we're not in the best form, and they don't concede any goals at a time when we're struggling a little bit to score them as well. That really worries me. So yeah, I mean, everything I think I'm not looking forward to. I think just largely the fact it's all rhythm at the moment, isn't it? And I think this season's been really hard to find rhythm in for a bunch of different reasons. Some even self-inflicted as well. But it just feels like that's what we're massively lacking. On again, to go back to the Marino note, I think one of the reasons that he's not started any games is partly because of this Liverpool game. I think Arteta's seeing it as we need to get to this Liverpool game and get beyond it. And I don't want to be bringing in a guy and trying to integrate him and trying to find his role within a team at this stage. Had he not been injured when he first came to the club, maybe he would have found his place already. Maybe he might well be in the side, but at the moment, you want to stick with Partey and Rice and just do what we do and try and do it as well as possible on Sunday. And there's and that's all just the same thing. It's just rhythm and yeah, I'm not a particularly positive bunny about what's going to happen with Liverpool. Come the day, I'll feel a little bit excited, and that bit of trepidation will set in, and I'll back the boys. But I am worried about it. It's not great timing.
No, understandable. And on your point, so in the Premier League, they're number one for goals conceded per match, 0.4, and number one for clean sheets, 5 in 77 games. So they're hard to beat. But there's always the caveat, like who have they really played? And the one team that they played, well, yeah, Chelsea at home, and then they let in a goal. They lost to Forest at home. So there's vulnerabilities there. Their midfield isn't massively creative, but they've got Mo Salah, and I'll come to that in a second. So yeah, but on the point of the defense, yeah, they're hard to score against. We can't score for shit at the moment. So yeah, great. 4-0 Arsenal. What I'm looking forward to, I think the atmosphere will be. I'll be fortunate enough to go. The atmosphere will be, I think, incredible. I think the crowd will get right behind us, behind the team. I think we'll bring our dinner, as a famous person on Twitter keeps suggesting, and yeah. So I think it'll be good. I'll be getting to my seat, I think, early. I want to be in there, and really, I really think it'll be good. On the flip side, what I'm not looking forward to is, should it go away, or should should things not be going our way and stuff like that. I think we're a bit quick to turn. I think we're going to be we're antsy at the moment. We're anxious. We're thinking, and I think we touched on it the other day or in the other pod with you or with Moz. Like, our enjoyment is so sort of focused around what happens with City, what happens longer term, and all the rest of it. That anything bad will just be like, and yeah. So I'm not looking forward to that turning, and that's a shame. But I can sort of see that potentially happening, and we need to stay behind the team no matter what, and we need to appreciate. Again, like last night, there was people. Again, we're looking at this team with a lens of last year, a lens of a team all firing, best 11 playing regularly, week in, week out, and we're not that. We're something else. So then we need to temper expectations and things like that. But there's the crowd and the crowd mentality, and then a few of you start getting down. So anyway, let's hope it doesn't come to that. But that's in a way what I'm not looking forward to. You're right. I'm not looking forward to Salah taking us apart, because he scored 10 goals against us. We're the second. He scored only behind Man United, where he scored 12. We're his favourite team to score against. The inevitable Salah versus Zinchenko is happening. All our left backs are getting injured, so we're only left with Zinchenko to play against Mo Salah on Saturday.
I did say that I didn't want to see Calafiori against Salah, didn't I? However, I'm not entirely sure that I'm comfortable with any of the given alternatives.
Be careful what you wish for.
Exactly. I mean, you never know. It could be MLS. He could go with him. He could go. I mean, might be worth it. I don't know. I mean, yeah, worries me no end, that particular matchup. It's interesting to say about the fans, and I do think there's a little bit of the fans missing their leader as well, mind you. In the player, whenever things went against us, and in particular if I think back to 0203, Martin Odegaard, right? The good old G'ing up of the fans, his old arms gesticulating as soon as something goes against us, and come on, get behind us and all that. And actually, again, Ramsdale, and actually Zinny was one of them as well. Zinny used to do a lot of that stuff and a lot of the fist pumping and get the fans behind us and stuff too. And I feel like both the team and the fans there's a little bit of a lack of leadership at the moment. It feels like the team as a whole's proven its character and that it's got a few leaders. However, just so happens quite a lot of them are either out or have been displaced in recent times. And I can't help but feel like it needs somebody to step up. And I must admit, of all the things, I've been less down on Declan Rice than a lot of people this season that feel like he's drifting a little bit. But it's the leadership that I want to see from him a little bit more. He's not as vocal as I want him to be. He's not as energised as I want him to be. And I would include even last season, but he didn't need to be for most of that. But I almost expect him to step up a little bit into that void and be the person who's wildly gesticulating. And that might just not be who he is. But for whatever reason, I look at him and think, you've captained West Ham. You're playing that position in the heart of midfield, and you put yourself about, and you've got a lot of leadership qualities, but I'd like him to maybe be the one that steps up and is a little bit more vocal as well. But
yeah, even just a dominant performance getting in it. I think that's the weak part. Even the Gravenbach seems to have done all right for Liverpool. I think that's the weakness is the Liverpool midfield, and if we dominate them, then that's half the battle won. So I think, yeah, you're right. I think Rice, that's a good call. He's like a lot of our players, we're just not in a rhythm. We're just not there, and we know the circumstances. But individuals can still step up. You see Martinelli step up against Shakhtar. Saka, every time he steps up, and other players. Gabriel has done it. And I think it's time for Rice. Havertz has stepped up. Rice, this is the game to step up and dominate and be that midfielder, because he's been called out. I think he had a bad Euros. I say bad Euros. He was put in a difficult position by Southgate by putting the wrong person next to him, and then he gets the blame because Rice, why aren't you covering for everyone else's mistakes? So, so that's fine. So yeah, you're right. I'd like to see a dominant thing from him. Is it a must-win game, or is it a must-not-lose game?
I think it contextually it's a must not lose game.
Yeah.
I think that's the context. Importantly, I mean, instinctively, yeah, of course, it feels like a must win game. You've got to beat if you want to win the title, you've got to beat City and Liverpool at home, and then try and get something away. But for in the context we're in at the moment, it's just I would be okay with the draw.
Yeah. No, to be honest, I'd be happy to finish with 10 men and no injuries. So, because I put this rhetorical question in there, like how many times can the team and Arteta get kicked in the nuts and keep having to find ways to win, and how as fans can we remain optimistic? Because it just feels like every week we're just standing there, legs wide apart, and the PGMOL or the injury gods come up and give a wild swing into the knackers, and we're having to like get back up and say, and again, please. Yeah,
I'd even just take a red card that isn't in any way the source of discussion for everybody for the next week afterwards. To be honest, let's have Ben White absolutely scythe through somebody. With
Salah, go on,
you
take him
know,
out for the season.
like take him out around about the midriff. Like, why not at this stage? If we're going to do it, let's just fucking take somebody with us. Like it just
Yeah.
feels at the moment that's the most frustrating bit about it. I don't want marginal reds. I'd
Yeah.
far rather let's Manu Petit this.
Yeah. All right, I'm going down and you're coming with me. Good. Yeah, that's
Exactly,
what I like.
exactly,
I like that.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
look, we are where we are. Look, City, after 15 games, were only on 30 points last year. Now, obviously, they went on some crazy run and all the rest of it, but we're capable of that. So again, it's not. Again, whatever happens, it's not the end of the season. It's not the end of whatever. Yes, I can feel why people why, but look, anyway, let's not think about the negative. Let's think positive. So how are we going to win this game? So what do you think? Oh, so who's going to be? What do you think the team's going to likely be, or how we're going to set up to win this game, and
How are we going
and
to win this?
how we going who's going to how are we going to win it, and who's going to win it for us?
I mean, a mini trip to Dubai is looking really inviting at any given point now. I'm looking forward to January just to be able to say we've been to Dubai and we've recharged again.
Unfortunately, we're playing on Sunday, so we got four.
Yeah,
We got
yeah,
four.
I know. I mean, you can do it, you know. Anyway, we've got the hookup with the Emirates, haven't we? So yeah, I mean, team wise, it's going to be the strongest that we can possibly put out. I'd expect Saka to start if he can. I'm not expecting any change in the midfield. I don't think this is the one for Jorginho. I think this is the one for Partey and Rice to continue as they are. Trossard to continue where he is, and just the one change that I'm really expecting, Jesus for Saka if possible, and then left back is whoever can step up and take that position, right? And actually,
Would
sorry,
you?
without Saliba for this,
Yes. So that makes it
aren't
even.
we? Oh
So
God!
therefore, that's why Timber's important. So White goes inside. Well, do we play White at centre back and then you play Partey at right back? And then who plays left back if Calafiori's injured? Or to be honest, I think it's more likely to play right at. We can't go with Partey at right back, so we go right, White, Kivior, Gabriel, and it could be Zinchenko or it could be LMS, because if you play
Oh God, that's terrifying, isn't it?
if
Sorry,
you play
that is
if you play
absolutely
Kivior at left
terrifying.
back against Salah, in terms of suiting our game and the way we play, is likely we play Zinchenko there if Calafiori can't have, if Timber's injured, because I would have liked, I think with you having seen Calafiori a bit, I would have liked Timber against Salah. That would have been my matchup. White on the right, and I would happily then have Kivior in the middle. So a lot depends on Timber's fitness, but that's the noises are that Saka, maybe a bit of Arteta gaslighting and a bit of just game playing, whatever. The stories out today is that Saka might be fit. I mean, Arteta said that he's not been training and doesn't, so therefore unlikely. But I think he's playing his cards close to the chest, trying to just whatever. But I think Saka will play. But Timber's the one I don't think will. We don't know about Calafiori. That'd be an amazing recovery. I don't want Partey at right back. I think we lose too much with him there. So I think we have to make do. If we've got no Timber, it'll be White, Kivior, Gabriel, Zinchenko. That's our back. That's our back four against Diaz. Hopefully Jota's out. Diaz, Salah, and Nunez or Gakpo or whoever. As
Yeah,
a,
I mean, if I'm them, I'm starting Gakpo. I think you want to just go at the fullbacks as much as possible, almost regardless of who they are, because even if it is Timber, um, you're talking about a 50-50 bet the week of him going into the game. You're going to go at the fullbacks all day. But yeah, it is a mass. That's the concern, isn't it? It's a huge concern, and I think you're right. The midfield battle is going to be absolutely massive for this, because if we can win over the midfield and get a degree of control on the game, I think that's the thing that we need in this. We need control. Um, we know how good a set of individuals Liverpool are on the break. They've got lots of pace. You've got a top heavy attacking talent. Um, they are controlling games a lot better than they have been in previous seasons, and they're kind of set out to do that a little bit more. But as you say, they've been wresting control off of teams that aren't necessarily the best in this league. So I think that's going to be the key battle area. And you almost wonder whoever it is that we have in that back line, are they going to sit a little bit more than they usually do? Are Rice and Partey ultimately going to be prioritising their defensive capabilities and their duels? There's probably a slight question there of over whether you might want to put in a Marino and just go,
well,
you know what,
uh,
we're going to go with the flat three in midfield.
I was going to say that because I think, do we take a pragmatic approach, a bit like we did with Spurs away, and we try and win it off a set piece and hold on? I'm again, best form of defense is attack, but yeah, I don't know. I in a way, if Saka's fit, in a way, I thought I'd be happy with Nelly, Saka, and Havertz, and then Marino, Partey, and Rice in the middle. Because I think we need that just additional, especially if Zinchenko plays, then and stuff like that. I think there's a chance that will happen. Trossard off the bench. His last two games haven't been great, so that's. And knowing Arteta, a bit of pragmatism, yeah, I got a feeling that's maybe how we set up. If Saka plays, if he doesn't, he maybe then starts Trossard out wide, as opposed to Jesus. And yeah, we see where we go from there. But it's going to be interesting. It all depends on fitness and and availability. It's a shame. Yeah, it's a shame. We want to be playing these top games with our top players. But stranger things have happened. If we can get in there, crowd behind us, something happens, and we go and win and be an amazing victory and so on. But yeah, Liverpool are a threat, top of the league at the moment. Yeah, scored 15, let in 3. Yeah, that's after 8 games. They've lost 1, Forest at home, but that was after the international break, I think, last time. So they're unbeaten away. They play Leipzig tonight, so fingers crossed. All right, I'll leave it at that. Yeah, they're like 4th in the league in terms of goals per match. They're number 1 in terms of big chances created. They're number 2 in terms of expected goals. Yeah, their average possession, they're 3rd, 60%. So, look, they are a top team. We know all their players. Allison is out. They've got a good backup there. Jota, hopefully he's out because he always somehow scores against us. Elliott and Chiesa seem to be out. Chiesa might be available. Look, they're a top team, top of the league. They're doing well under Slot. Whether they can last the distance, don't know. But they'll be well up for this as well. So I think it'll be a good battle. We just need to have right mentality, right focus. Something go our way. We dig in deep. We get the 3 points, and we move on.
Zero.
So on that,
I just want to see really, really low XG, like literally less than 0.4 XG per team, and we've got a shot at this. All right. But
Yeah,
that ultimately is it for me. Is just you don't want a load of clear cut chances in this.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, look, we are a good team. We can be a good team. Let's dig in. Let's bring in what we did against City. Let's bring in what we did against Spurs. Bring that mentality to the Emirates, and you never know. So I'm going to stay positive, stay hopeful. Be back in the team, and fingers crossed. So on that note, before we close out, predictions. What's your prediction?
Uh,
Honest prediction.
0-0.
Okay.
I do think that there's a shot of it. My problem is what I think the alternative to 0-0 might be is not in Arsenal's favour. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 0-0 and say I hope that we could shut up shop, keep it nice and tight, nullify ourselves a little bit, but battle away and come away with the red sailed eye.
I'm going to ignore what I just said to you. I think it's going to be 2-1, but I'm not going to predict 2-1 to Liverpool or 2-0 to Liverpool. I'm going to predict 1-0 to the Arsenal. Just dogged. Again, we're going to do what we did against Spurs. Dig in, just dig in, get a goal, set piece FC, instead of red card FC, and we're going to dig in, and the crowd's going to come away happy. Let's hope it's a goal in the last 5 minutes rather than early on, so therefore we're not panicking and hanging on to dear life. But there we go. Okay, fingers crossed, everything's crossed. We're going to do it. Right. And if we don't, it's not the end of the world. We'll be all good. So on that note, thanks as always, Jamie, for joining me today. Thank you for taking us through your thoughts on Shakhtar and on Liverpool. Good as always. For our listeners, follow us on Threads at The Grove AFC. Listen to all our old pods. Listen to pods coming forward. We thank everyone for feedback and etc. etc. So until we record on Friday, on Sunday after the game, or Monday, enjoy your next few days, and keep smiling. Thank you very much.